Triple H just committed the biggest mistake of his executive career and the wrestling world is about to explode. Bronson Reed, one of WWE's most dominant forces, has been fired, terminated, and blacklisted from WWE all because he had the audacity to do what every wrestler dreams of doing, taking down the so-called original tribal chief Roman Reigns. But here's what's going to make your blood absolutely boil: this wasn't about protecting talent or maintaining order. This was about protecting WWE's golden boy at all costs, even if it means destroying the career of a wrestler who gave everything to this company. Triple H just proved that WWE is willing to sacrifice anyone to keep Roman Reigns looking strong. Dramatic pause: if you think this is just another corporate decision, you're dead wrong. What happened behind the scenes after Clash in Paris involves backstage politics so dirty, executive decisions so corrupt, and corporate favoritism so blatant that it makes Vince McMahon's worst decisions look reasonable. Hit that like button because what I'm about to expose will make you question whether WWE has become the most toxic workplace in professional wrestling. The Clash in Paris conspiracy. Let me break down exactly what happened at Clash in Paris that led to the most controversial firing in modern WWE history, because what you saw on your television screen was just a carefully edited version of events that were so much worse than WWE wanted you to know. The attack on Roman Reigns wasn't some random act of violence or a wrestler going into business for himself. Sources close to the situation tell us that Bronson Reed had been planning this assault for weeks, and he had legitimate grievances against both Roman Reigns and WWE management that justified everything he did. Here's what WWE doesn't want you to know: Bronson Reed had been promised a main event push for over 6 months. He was told that his dominance, his legitimate athletic background, and his incredible in-ring ability would finally be rewarded with the kind of storylines and championship opportunities that his talent deserved. Instead, what did he get? He got fed to Roman Reigns' comeback story. He got positioned as another obstacle for the original tribal chief to overcome on his path back to championship glory. He got treated like a disposable monster of the week instead of the legitimate main event talent that everyone in the industry knows he is. But here's where it gets really disgusting: WWE management, specifically Triple H and his inner circle, made the decision to sacrifice Reed's career momentum to protect Roman's return narrative. They didn't care that Reed had been working harder than anyone on the roster. They didn't care that fans were responding to his dominance with genuine excitement. They only cared about making sure Roman looked strong. The attack that changed everything: what Bronson Reed did to Roman Reigns at Clash in Paris will go down as one of the most justified assaults in wrestling history, and the fact that WWE fired him for it proves everything that's wrong with their corporate culture. The attack wasn't random. It wasn't unplanned. It wasn't the result of Reed going into business for himself, as WWE's propaganda machine wants you to believe. This was a calculated response to months of disrespect, broken promises, and corporate manipulation that would have driven any self-respecting athlete to the breaking point. Reed had been watching Roman Reigns get preferential treatment for years. He'd seen Roman receive opportunities, storylines, and championship reigns that other wrestlers who were more talented, more dedicated, and more deserving, never got a chance to experience. And when Reed finally reached his limit, when he finally decided to take matters into his own hands, WWE's response was to destroy his career. The brutality of Reed's attack on Roman was proportional to the brutality of WWE's treatment of Reed's career. Every chair shot, every power move, every moment of dominance was Reed expressing years of frustration with a system that rewards corporate favorites over legitimate talent. But here's what makes this even more infuriating: Roman Reigns knew this was coming. Sources backstage tell us that Roman was aware of Reed's frustrations, knew about his broken promises, and understood exactly why Reed felt justified in taking the action he took. And Roman's response? He ran crying to management to get Reed fired instead of handling the situation like a man. The backstage meeting that sealed Reed's fate: the decision to fire Bronson Reed wasn't made in some corporate boardroom after careful consideration of all the facts. It was made in an emergency meeting immediately after Clash in Paris, and the people involved in that meeting reveal everything you need to know about WWE's toxic corporate culture. Triple H called the meeting within hours of the attack, and the attendees tell you everything about WWE's current priorities: Roman Reigns, Nick Khan, Stephanie McMahon, and WWE's head of legal affairs. Notice who wasn't in that meeting? Anyone representing talent relations. Anyone advocating for wrestler rights. Anyone who might have suggested that Reed's actions were understandable given his treatment. Sources who were present described the meeting as one-sided from the beginning. Triple H had already made up his mind that Reed needed to be punished, and the discussion wasn't about whether firing was appropriate, it was about how to spin the decision to avoid negative publicity. Roman Reigns' role in that meeting was particularly disgusting. Instead of acknowledging that Reed's frustrations were legitimate, instead of taking responsibility for the way WWE's favoritism had contributed to the situation, Roman spent the entire meeting painting himself as a victim and demanding that Reed face the harshest possible consequences. Roman sat there acting like he was some innocent victim of an unprovoked attack, one source told us. He conveniently ignored the months of Reed being screwed over, the broken promises, the way management had treated one of their most talented performers like garbage. All Roman cared about was protecting his own image. The legal justification that doesn't exist. WWE's official statement about Reed's firing claims that he violated company policy regarding unprofessional conduct and unsafe working conditions. But here's what makes that justification absolutely laughable. Everything Reed did was within the bounds of professional wrestling, and WWE has a long history of allowing similar actions when they served the company's interests. Let's talk about unsafe working conditions. Steve Austin stunned his boss on a weekly basis. The Undertaker threw Mankind off Hell in a Cell. Mick Foley took chair shots that would hospitalize most people. But when Bronson Reed delivers similar punishment to Roman Reigns, suddenly it's a firing offense? The unprofessional conduct claim is even more ridiculous. CM Punk walked out of WWE and trashed the company in public interviews. Brock Lesnar no-showed events when contract negotiations weren't going his way. Roman Reigns himself has made public comments criticizing WWE's creative decisions. But Reed gets fired for expressing his frustrations through his actions instead of his words? The real reason Reed was fired has nothing to do with company policy and everything to do with protecting Roman Reigns' image. WWE couldn't allow Reed's actions to be seen as justified, because that would require acknowledging that their treatment of Reed was unfair. So instead of examining their own failures, they destroyed Reed's career. The Roman Reigns protection racket. What happened to Bronson Reed is just the latest example of WWE's systematic protection of Roman Reigns at the expense of every other wrestler on the roster. This isn't about maintaining order or enforcing company policy, this is about ensuring that nothing and nobody interferes with Roman's position as WWE's chosen one. Look at the pattern. Any wrestler who genuinely challenges Roman, who exposes his weaknesses, or who threatens his position suddenly finds themselves dealing with creative differences, backstage issues, or policy violations. Meanwhile, Roman continues to receive preferential treatment, protected booking, and executive support that other wrestlers can only dream of. The most infuriating part is how WWE pretends this favoritism doesn't exist. They act like Roman's success is purely based on merit, like his championship reigns are earned rather than handed to him, like his position at the top of the company is the result of fan support rather than corporate mandate. Bronson Reed's firing proves that WWE will sacrifice anyone to maintain the illusion that Roman Reigns is legitimately the best wrestler in the company. They'll destroy careers, break promises, and abandon their own talent rather than admit that their golden boy might not be as special as they pretend he is. The Triple H hypocrisy exposed. The most disgusting aspect of this entire situation is Triple H's role in Reed's firing, because it exposes him as the biggest hypocrite in wrestling history. This is the same man who built his career on challenging authority, on refusing to accept corporate limitations, on doing whatever it took to reach the top of the wrestling business. Triple H's character was literally built on the concept that wrestlers should fight against unfair treatment, should refuse to accept being held back by management decisions, and should take matters into their own hands when the system fails them. But when Bronson Reed does exactly what Triple H used to do, suddenly it's a firing offense? Remember when Triple H attacked Shawn Michaels? Remember when he turned on D-Generation X? Remember when he screwed over his own tag team partners? All of those actions were celebrated as examples of Triple H's ruthless determination and willingness to do whatever it took to succeed. But Reed gets fired for showing the same kind of determination. The hypocrisy is so blatant that it's almost insulting to wrestling fans' intelligence. Triple H succeeded by breaking rules, by challenging authority, and by refusing to accept the limitations that management tried to place on his career. But now that he is management, he's punishing other wrestlers for displaying the same characteristics that made him successful. The corporate cover-up. WWE's handling of the Reed firing reveals a corporate culture that's more concerned with managing public perception than addressing real problems within their organization. The official statements, the media spin, and the carefully crafted narratives are all designed to hide the truth about how WWE treats talent who don't fit their predetermined plans. The company's public relations team worked overtime to portray Reed as an uncontrollable monster who endangered other wrestlers through his actions. They leaked stories about backstage concerns and unprofessional behavior that painted Reed as someone whose firing was inevitable and justified. But sources inside WWE tell a completely different story. They describe Reed as one of the most professional wrestlers on the roster, someone who was always prepared, always willing to work with others, and always focused on improving his craft. The behavioral issues the WWE cited were entirely related to Reed's frustrations with his booking and treatment, not any problems with his work ethic or professionalism. The corporate cover-up extended to how WWE handled reactions from other wrestlers. Multiple sources tell us that several roster members were warned against making public statements supporting Reed or criticizing the company's decision. The message was clear: anyone who questioned Reed's firing might find themselves dealing with similar policy violations. The locker room revolt. What WWE doesn't want you to know is that Reed's firing has created significant unrest in the locker room, with wrestlers questioning whether their own jobs are secure if they don't completely conform to management's expectations. The reaction from other wrestlers has been overwhelmingly supportive of Reed, but but that support has been largely private because of fears about retaliation from management. Multiple wrestlers have expressed concerns that Reed's firing sets a dangerous precedent where WWE can destroy careers based on protecting favored wrestlers rather than enforcing consistent policies. If they can fire Bronson for that, they can fire any of us for anything, one current wrestler told us anonymously. It's not about what he did, it's about who he did it to. Roman is untouchable, and everyone else is expendable. The locker room divide isn't just about Reed's firing, it's about the broader culture of favoritism that his termination represents. Wrestlers are tired of seeing less talented performers receive opportunities while more deserving athletes are held back or pushed aside entirely. Some wrestlers are reportedly considering their options outside WWE because they're concerned that the company's commitment to protecting Roman Reigns means there's no real opportunity for advancement for anyone else. The Reed firing has become a symbol of everything that's wrong with WWE's current approach to talent development and roster management. The fan backlash that terrifies WWE. The response from WWE fans to Reed's firing has been so overwhelmingly negative that the company's social media teams have been working around the clock to manage the public relations disaster they've created. Social media engagement around Reed's firing has been unlike anything WWE has seen in recent memory, with hashtags supporting Reed and criticizing WWE trending worldwide for days after the announcement. The volume and intensity of fan criticism has caught WWE management off guard and forced them to reconsider how they handle similar situations in the future. The most damaging aspect of the fan backlash is that it's not just coming from Reed's supporters, it's coming from wrestling fans who are tired of WWE's corporate favoritism and systematic mistreatment of talented wrestlers. Reed's firing has become a rallying point for broader frustrations with WWE's creative and business decisions. WWE's attempts to control the narrative have backfired spectacularly. Every official statement, every leaked story, and every attempt to justify Reed's firing has generated more criticism and more questions about the company's priorities and decision-making processes. The fan reaction has been so intense that several major sponsors have privately expressed concerns about being associated with a company that appears to punish talented employees for standing up against unfair treatment. While no sponsors have publicly withdrawn support, the private conversations are reportedly causing significant concern within WWE's corporate structure. The financial implications from a business perspective. Reed's firing represents one of the most costly mistakes in WWE's recent history, and the financial implications extend far beyond just losing one wrestler's contributions to programming. Reed was one of WWE's most marketable international stars, particularly in Australia and the broader Pacific region. His firing has damaged WWE's relationships with international partners and promotional companies who had built marketing campaigns around Reed's presence and future storylines. Merchandise sales data shows that Reed's termination immediately impacted revenue from products featuring his likeness or connected to his character. The company was forced to cancel planned merchandise lines and promotional campaigns that would have generated significant income over the coming months. The cost of replacing Reed's contributions to programming is also significant. WWE now needs to restructure storylines, recast roles in upcoming events, and find ways to fill the void left by losing one of their most physically impressive and athletically capable performers. But the biggest financial impact comes from the damage to WWE's reputation and brand image. The negative publicity surrounding Reed's firing has affected everything from stock price performance to negotiations with potential business partners who are concerned about WWE's treatment of talent. The legal ramifications. While WWE believes they've covered themselves legally with Reed's termination, sources close to the situation suggest that Reed's legal team is exploring multiple avenues for challenging the firing and seeking compensation for damages to his career and earning potential. The central legal question is whether WWE's stated reasons for Reed's termination are legitimate or whether they're pretexts designed to hide the real motivation, protecting Roman Reigns from legitimate competitive challenges. If Reed's team can prove that his firing was actually retaliation for challenging WWE's favored wrestler, the company could face significant legal consequences. Reed's contract reportedly included specific provisions about the circumstances under which he could be terminated, and his legal team believes WWE may have violated those contractual obligations. The company's rush to fire Reed immediately after Clash in Paris, without conducting a proper investigation or following standard disciplinary procedures, could be seen as evidence that their decision was predetermined rather than based on legitimate policy violations. There's also the question of damages. Reed was positioned for a significant push before his firing, with planned storylines and championship opportunities that would have generated substantial income. If his legal team can demonstrate that WWE's actions cost him those earning opportunities for illegitimate reasons, the financial consequences for WWE could be severe. The industry impact. Reed's firing has sent shockwaves through the entire wrestling industry, with other promotions, wrestlers, and industry professionals taking note of what happened and adjusting their approaches accordingly. Competing wrestling companies have been quick to reach out to Reed's representatives, recognizing that WWE's loss could be their gain. Reed's combination of size, athleticism, and legitimate grievances against his former employer makes him an extremely attractive free agent who could immediately improve any roster. The incident has also prompted discussions within the industry about wrestler rights, corporate favoritism, and the need for better protections against retaliation. Reed's situation has become a cautionary tale about what can happen when wrestlers challenge company favorites, even when their grievances are legitimate. Independent wrestling promotions are using Reed's firing as a recruiting tool, arguing to potential signings that WWE's corporate culture makes it impossible for non-favored wrestlers to achieve their full potential. The narrative that WWE will sacrifice anyone to protect Roman Reigns has become a powerful argument for wrestlers considering their career options. The international consequences Reed's firing has been particularly damaging to WWE's international relationships and expansion plans, especially in markets where Reed was positioned as a major star and cultural ambassador. Australian media coverage of Reed's termination has been overwhelmingly negative, portraying WWE as an American corporation that exploited an Australian athlete and then discarded him when he became inconvenient. The damage to WWE's reputation in Australia could affect their ability to book major events or develop new talent relationships in that market. International wrestling promotions in Japan, Europe, and other markets have been openly critical of WWE's handling of Reed's situation, creating diplomatic tensions that could affect future business relationships and talent exchanges. The timing of Reed's firing, immediately after an international event like Clash in Paris, sent a particularly negative message about how WWE values their international performers and audiences. The company had positioned Reed as an example of their global talent development, making his termination seem like a betrayal of their own stated values. The future implications for WWE Reed's firing has created long-term problems for WWE that extend far beyond the immediate controversy and will likely influence how the company operates for years to come. The precedent set by Reed's termination makes it clear that WWE is willing to sacrifice talented performers to protect favored wrestlers, which creates an atmosphere of fear and resentment that will be difficult to overcome. Other wrestlers now understand that challenging Roman Reigns or other company favorites can result in career-ending consequences. The incident has also damaged WWE's credibility with talent agents, wrestling schools, and independent promotions that serve as sources of new talent. The perception that WWE's corporate culture is toxic and that non-favored wrestlers have limited opportunities for advancement will make it harder for the company to attract top-tier talent in the future. WWE's handling of Reed's firing has provided a blueprint for how not to manage talent relations in the modern wrestling industry. The combination of broken promises, corporate favoritism, and retaliation against legitimate grievances represents everything that's wrong with traditional wrestling business practices. The Roman Reigns problem at the center of this entire controversy is the fundamental problem with WWE's approach to Roman Reigns and the lengths they're willing to go to protect his position at the expense of other talented wrestlers. Roman's role in Reed's firing reveals him as someone who's more concerned with protecting his own status than with the health of the overall wrestling product or the welfare of his colleagues. His willingness to use his corporate protection to destroy Reed's career rather than acknowledge legitimate grievances shows a level of selfishness that's damaging to the entire company. The most frustrating aspect is that Roman doesn't need this level of protection. He's a talented wrestler who could succeed based on his own merits without WWE systematically destroying anyone who challenges him. But the company's obsession with maintaining his image has created a culture where legitimate competition is seen as a threat rather than an opportunity. Reed's firing proves that WWE has learned nothing from decades of criticism about their corporate favoritism and predetermined outcomes. They're still willing to sacrifice the integrity of their product and the careers of talented wrestlers to maintain the illusion that their chosen favorites are legitimately superior. The broader wrestling landscape. The implications of Reed's firing extend beyond WWE to the entire wrestling industry, raising questions about corporate responsibility, wrestler rights, and the balance between entertainment and athletic legitimacy. Reed's situation has become a case study in how not to handle talent relations in modern professional wrestling. The combination of broken promises, unfair treatment, and retaliation for legitimate grievances represents a business model that's increasingly outdated and unsustainable. Other wrestling companies are using Reed's experience as an example of why their approaches to talent development and roster management are superior to WWE's corporate model. The contrast between WWE's favoritism-based system and companies that promote based on merit has never been more stark. The incident has also sparked broader discussions about unionization and collective bargaining in professional wrestling. Reed's individual situation highlights systemic problems that could potentially be addressed through organized labor representation and standardized industry practices. The ultimate injustice. When you step back and look at the complete picture of Bronson Reed's firing, what emerges is a story of corporate cowardice, systematic favoritism, and the destruction of a talented wrestler's career for the sake of protecting WWE's golden boy. Reed did nothing that countless wrestlers haven't done before. His attack on Roman Reigns was justified by months of mistreatment and broken promises. His actions were within the bounds of professional wrestling entertainment. His grievances were legitimate and his frustrations were understandable. But because his target was Roman Reigns, because his actions threatened WWE's carefully constructed narrative about their chosen champion, and because acknowledging Reed's legitimacy would require admitting their own failures, WWE chose to destroy his career instead of examining their own problems. The message WWE sent with Reed's firing is clear: conform to corporate expectations, accept whatever treatment management decides to give you, and never challenge the company's favored wrestlers, no matter how unfairly you're being treated. That message represents everything that's wrong with modern WWE and everything that needs to change if professional wrestling is going to evolve beyond its current limitations. Reed's firing isn't just an injustice to one wrestler, it's a symbol of a corporate culture that prioritizes image management over talent development, favoritism over fairness, and corporate convenience over athletic integrity. The final verdict: Triple H's decision to fire Bronson Reed will go down as one of the most cowardly, hypocritical, and damaging executive decisions in wrestling history. It proves that WWE's current leadership is more concerned with protecting their corporate favorites than with building a fair, competitive, and merit-based wrestling product. Reed deserved better. The wrestling fans who wanted to see legitimate competition deserved better. And honestly, even Roman Reigns deserved better than having his career protected through the systematic destruction of anyone who might challenge him. The wrestling world lost something important when Bronson Reed was fired. We lost a talented athlete, a compelling performer, and someone who was willing to fight against an unfair system even when it cost him everything. We lost the possibility of seeing what might have happened if Reed had been allowed to compete on equal terms with WWE's corporate favorites. Most importantly, we lost any remaining illusion that WWE operates as a legitimate competitive sport rather than a corporate entertainment product designed to protect predetermined outcomes and favored performers. Bronson Reed's career was sacrificed on the altar of Roman Reigns' image, and that sacrifice reveals everything you need to know about WWE's priorities, their values, and their commitment to the wrestlers who give everything to make their company successful. The original tribal chief got his protection, Triple H got his corporate compliance, and WWE got their carefully managed narrative. But the wrestling industry lost something that it can't afford to lose: the belief that talent, determination, and legitimate grievances matter more than corporate favoritism and executive convenience. Reed's firing is more than just one man's career being destroyed, it's proof that WWE has become exactly what critics have always accused them of being: a corporate machine that chews up and spits out talented wrestlers whenever protecting their chosen stars becomes more important than fairness, competition, or basic human decency. End of script. If this expose of WWE's corporate corruption and systematic favoritism opened your eyes to what really happened to Bronson Reed, smash that like button and let me know in the comments whether you think Triple H made the biggest mistake of his executive career. Subscribe for more exclusive wrestling content, because this story proves that WWE's problems go way deeper than just one firing, and we're going to keep exposing the truth no matter how uncomfortable it makes the corporate executives.